Hi guys, Pete the Wargamer here, back with another painting tutorial. In this video I'll be showing you how to paint the stock sworn swords from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, and for this I'll be using the Army Painter range of paints. Before we can begin to paint our miniatures, you will first need to prime it to ensure that the later layers of paint adhere to the miniature's surface properly. I've opted for a grey primer as this is a fairly neutral colour that you can easily build up from. However, feel free to use your own preference. To start things off, we'll be painting the faded grey blue of the tabard, and for this we'll be using some wolf grey. When it comes to base coats, I like to thin down my mixture with a little water to make the application easier and finish smoother. Mix in water with your paint until you have a consistency similar to what you see here. Once your paint has been sufficiently thinned, you can then apply it to the tabard. Apply at least 2 thin coats of paint to ensure a good even coverage, allowing the paint to dry thoroughly between applications. As this is our first step, don't worry too much about overspilling onto the other parts of the miniature just yet, as we can tidy these up later on. To paint the leather belt, gloves, boots and undershirt as well as the wooden shield, we'll be using some werewolf fur in the exact same way as the previous step. This slightly greyish brown, when combined with the tabard colour, will help to convey a cool colour tone, perfect for representing these men of the north. The next base coat is for the skin, and this will be base coated using Kobold Skin. The area to cover is only very small, which is why we're painting it before applying any of the surrounding colours. To paint the black parts of the miniature, which include the direwolf sigils and the facial hair, I'll be using some Necromancer Cloak. You may notice that this paint is a dark grey rather than a black, which is important as when we apply a dark wash later on, we need to be able to see some variance of shade between the recesses and the raised sections. To finish off the base coat, we'll next be painting the armour, shield edging and sword, along with any other silver metallic areas, and for this we'll be using gunmetal. Once you've completed this step, be sure to clean out your brushes and water pot to avoid any cross-contamination of metal flakes to your other paints. Our next few steps will involve applying washes to our miniature, but before you apply it, we will first want to thin it down in order to reduce the strength of the wash. I'm going to mix in a little Quickshade mixing medium to my wash in roughly equal parts wash to medium. You could instead use water, but medium will create a smoother looking transition between the darker and lighter areas. It's also matte, which gives you a better finish. The first wash to use is strong tone, and once it's been thinned, you can then apply it to the entirety of the model. The wash will have 2 effects. First, it will flow into the recessed areas, helping to create and adding shading and depth. Secondly, the brown colour of the wash will also create the appearance of dirt, grime and rust over the cloth and metal areas. This will help to give our sworn sword a much grittier appearance. Following the same steps as before, we'll then apply a wash of dark tone, specifically over the brown and black parts of the miniature. This darker wash will help to boost the shading more than the previous one did. With our washes completed, our miniature is pretty much done and can be used on the battlefield as is. But if you wanted to add a little more detail, we can now turn our attention to a couple of highlights. These thin lines of paint applied along the raised edges of the miniature will help to improve the overall look of the model. We'll be starting off using some fog grey to pick out the raised edges of the tabard. To do this, take a brush with a fine point and dip it into some slightly watered down paint. Then gently drag the brush along the raised edges, creating a thin line of lighter coloured paint. Finally, I'll now be picking out some of the leather brown areas with some thin lines of monster brown, along the upper edges of the straps and the folds in the boots. And here we have the completed stock sworn sword. I finish things off by creating a simple basing scheme using some textured paints. Now, whilst I focused on a sworn sword for this video, you could apply the exact same colours and techniques to any of your stock foot soldiers. You can find a full list of all the paints that I've used in this tutorial in the description below, along with any other equipment that I've used to create this video, such as my everlasting wet palette. If you enjoyed this video, do let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out my Patreon page if you would like to support me in making these videos. If you have any questions or would just like to chat with others who enjoy my channel, I've set up a Discord server which you can find a link to in the description below. So the only thing left to say is, thanks for watching and goodbye.